The evening rain had just stopped when Marcus Williams stepped out of the downtown library where he worked part-time shelving books. At 53 years old, his hands were rough from years of construction work before an injury had forced him to find gentler employment. He pulled his worn denim jacket closer against the November chill and began his walk toward the bus stop. Marcus had raised his daughter Sarah alone since she was 3 years old. Now she was away at college studying to become a teacher, and he missed her terribly. Every penny he saved went toward her tuition. He lived simply in a small apartment and took the bus everywhere. His life had been about sacrifice and love, and he had no regrets about any of it. As he turned the corner near the financial district, he noticed a small crowd gathering on the sidewalk ahead. Something made him quicken his pace. Years of being a father had given him an instinct for when something was wrong. A woman in an elegant red suit lay on the cold pavement. Her designer handbag had fallen beside her and one of her hands clutched at her chest. Her face was pale and twisted in pain. Several people stood around her looking concerned but uncertain. Someone was on their phone, presumably calling for help. Marcus pushed through gently and knelt beside her. He had taken a CPR class at the community center just 6 months ago because he believed in being prepared to help others. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he asked softly, placing his hand on her shoulder. Her eyes fluttered open. They were blue and filled with fear. She tried to speak but could only gasp. "It's all right," Marcus said in the same calm voice he had used when Sarah had nightmares as a child. "Help is coming. You're going to be okay. I'm right here with you." He could see she was struggling to breathe. Her lips were beginning to turn slightly blue. Marcus knew he couldn't wait for the ambulance. He checked her pulse and found it irregular and weak. With steady hands he positioned himself and began chest compressions just as he had been taught. He counted quietly as he worked, keeping his movements firm and rhythmic. The woman's eyes locked onto his face as if his presence was an anchor in her storm of pain. "Stay with me," Marcus said between compressions. "You're doing good. Just stay with me." Time seemed to stretch. Marcus's arms began to ache, but he didn't stop. Someone in the crowd shouted that the ambulance was 2 minutes away. Marcus kept going. He thought about Sarah and how he would want someone to help her if she ever needed it. He thought about his late wife Claire and how she had always said his gentle strength was his greatest gift. Finally he felt the woman take a deeper breath. Her color improved slightly. The ambulance arrived with flashing lights and sirens, and the paramedics took over quickly and professionally. They worked on her with efficient urgency, then loaded her onto a stretcher. One of the paramedics, a young woman with kind eyes, touched Marcus's shoulder. "You saved her life," she said simply. "What you did kept her heart going until we could get here." Marcus just nodded, feeling suddenly exhausted. He watched as they lifted the stretcher into the ambulance. Just before they closed the doors, the woman's eyes found his again. She mouthed what looked like "thank you," and then she was gone. The crowd dispersed quickly as people returned to their busy lives. Marcus stood there for a moment in the empty space where someone had nearly died. Then he picked up his backpack and walked to his bus stop. He rode home in silence, looking out at the city lights and thinking about how fragile life was. That night he called Sarah and listened to her talk about her classes and her friends. He didn't mention what had happened. He just wanted to hear her voice and tell her he loved her. 3 weeks passed. Marcus had almost forgotten about that evening when a letter arrived at his apartment. It was in a heavy cream-colored envelope with his name written in elegant script. Inside was a note on expensive stationery. "Dear Marcus Williams," it began. "My name is Catherine Hayes. You saved my life on November 15th. I have spent these weeks recovering and searching for you. I needed to thank you properly. Would you please meet me for coffee? I will understand if you prefer not to, but I hope you will give me the chance to express my gratitude in person." There was a phone number at the bottom. Marcus sat at his small kitchen table and read the letter 3 times. He wasn't sure why, but something about it made his eyes water. He had helped someone because it was the right thing to do. He hadn't expected anything in return. But something in the letter's simple sincerity moved him. He picked up his phone and called the number. A woman's voice answered, warm and a bit uncertain. "Hello, this is Marcus Williams," he said. "I received your letter." "Oh," Catherine breathed out the word like a prayer. "Oh, thank you for calling." "Thank you." They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe near the library the following Saturday morning. Marcus arrived early, feeling nervous in a way he hadn't felt in years. He wore his best sweater, the navy blue one Sarah had given him for his birthday. He ordered a coffee and sat by the window. When Catherine Hayes walked in, he recognized her immediately despite the difference in circumstances. She wore simple clothes now, jeans and a soft gray sweater. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a casual ponytail. She looked younger, somehow more at ease than she had in that red power suit. She saw him and her face broke into a smile that was both joyful and tearful. She walked to his table and for a moment they just looked at each other. "May I sit?" she asked. "Of course," Marcus said, standing slightly. Catherine sat down and folded her hands on the table. "I practiced what I wanted to say to you 100 times, she began, "but now that you're here I find that the words are inadequate. You saved my life. You didn't hesitate. You didn't care who I was or what I could do for you. You just helped because I needed help." Marcus felt his throat tighten. Anyone would have done the same. "But they didn't," Catherine said gently. "There were a dozen people standing around me and they were all frozen. You acted. Your kindness and your courage gave me a second chance at life." They talked for 2 hours. Catherine told him she was the CEO of a financial firm. She was 60 years old and had spent her entire adult life building her career. She had wealth and success and respect, but she realized as she lay on that cold sidewalk that she had very few real connections in her life. Her heart attack had been a wake-up call in more ways than one. Marcus told her about Sarah and about Claire. He told her about his work at the library and how he loved recommending books to people. He talked about the quiet satisfaction of his simple life. "You're rich in all the ways that matter," Catherine said softly. "I've spent 40 years collecting things and achievements. You've spent your years collecting love and moments and kindness. I envy you that." Before they parted, Catherine asked if she could do something for Sarah's education. Marcus started to refuse, but Catherine held up her hand. "Please," she said, "not as payment but as gratitude. Let me help your daughter the way you helped me. Let me invest in something beautiful. Your daughter is going to change lives as a teacher. Let me be a small part of that." Marcus felt tears roll down his cheeks. He nodded, unable to speak. But their connection didn't end there. Over the following months, Marcus and Catherine became genuine friends. She came to his apartment for simple dinners. He taught her how to find joy in small things like walking through the park or browsing used bookstores. She introduced him to art galleries and symphony concerts he would never have attended on his own. When Sarah came home for the holidays, Catherine met her and the three of them had dinner together. Sarah hugged Catherine and thanked her. Catherine cried and said she should be thanking Sarah for sharing her remarkable father. On Christmas Eve, Catherine invited Marcus to her home. It was the first time he had seen where she lived. The house was beautiful but impersonal, like a hotel. She showed him around with an almost apologetic air. "I'm learning," she said, "that a house isn't a home just because it's expensive. I'm trying to fill it with meaning now. With people and warmth. You taught me that." They sat by her fireplace and talked late into the night. Catherine confessed she had been lonely for years but had been too proud and too busy to admit it. Marcus shared that he had been lonely too, especially with Sarah away at school. "Maybe we can be lonely together," Catherine said with a small smile. "Or better yet, maybe we can be not lonely together." Marcus smiled back. "I'd like that." Their friendship became a cornerstone of both their lives. Marcus helped Catherine slow down and appreciate the present moment. Catherine helped Marcus believe that he deserved good things too, that his life of service and sacrifice was worthy of recognition and support. When Sarah graduated 2 years later, Catherine was there cheering as loudly as Marcus. When Catherine decided to step back from her company and dedicate more time to charitable work, Marcus helped her navigate the fear of letting go of her identity as a CEO. One evening, as they sat on a bench in the park watching the sunset, Catherine turned to Marcus and said, "You know, that night you saved my life was the worst night and the best night of my existence. It broke me open and let the light in. It brought you into my world. I'll never stop being grateful." Marcus took her hand gently. "You gave me something too," he said. "You reminded me that connections can happen at any moment. That it's never too late to find family in unexpected places. That kindness creates ripples we can't always see but that spread out and touch everything." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and pink. Two people who had been strangers, now bound by a moment of crisis and all the moments of grace that followed. Life, Marcus thought, doesn't always give us what we expect. Sometimes it gives us exactly what we need if we're brave enough to kneel down on a cold sidewalk and offer our heart to a stranger. Sometimes that's where love begins.